Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into some really fascinating research material from Dr. Sudhendra S.G. It's all designed to help us, as teachers, really get a handle on the art of learning so we can help our students thrive. We're going to look at why those big, ambitious goals can sometimes totally backfire, and we'll uncover a powerful technique to make learning feel, well, almost effortless, right? Let's be honest, we've all seen this with our students, and we've definitely felt it ourselves. You get that initial rush of excitement when you set a huge goal. Mastering a tough subject, acing a final exam, whatever it is. But then, almost immediately, that excitement can just curdle into fear. This quote just nails that whole paradox perfectly. So this really is the million-dollar question for us as educators, isn't it? We push our students to dream big, to aim for the stars. But why is it that the bigger the dream, the more likely it is to become a roadblock? Well, it turns out the answer isn't about motivation or willpower. It's actually baked right into our biology. Okay, let's break down the core problem here. The research material is super clear on this. The bigger the change we're trying to make, the more fear we feel. And this isn't just a student feeling nervous or lazy. No, this is a predictable, hardwired reaction that kicks off deep inside the brain. And that's what we're going to look at next. So to really get why this happens, we have to take a quick peek inside the brain. When a student comes face to face with a goal that just feels massive, their brain doesn't register it as an exciting chance to grow. Nope. It sees a threat. And this whole reaction comes down to a tiny almond-shaped part of our brain called the amygdala. Just think of it as a super sensitive alarm system for fear. The second it detects a huge, uncertain task, it pulls the fire alarm. It floods the body with that classic fight or flight response, basically screaming at us to find comfort and avoid that scary thing at all costs. And what this creates is a really destructive little cycle. A student looks at a big goal. Their amygdala hits the panic button. And then what? Their ability to concentrate is just gone. Their creativity, their problem-solving skills, they just shut down. In other words, the very act of learning gets completely sabotaged before it even has a chance to start. But here's the good news. What if there were a way to kind of sneak past that alarm system? A way to make real progress without ever setting off the brain's fear response? Well, there is, and it's all about the incredible power of thinking small. This really gets to the heart of a huge shift in strategy. The old way is all about these big, scary leaps that are pretty much guaranteed to set off that fear alarm. But the new way, which we can call the Kaizen way, is all about taking steps that are so small, so manageable, that they just fly completely under the amygdala's radar. Now, this solution, which is highlighted by Robert Maurer, comes from the Japanese concept of Kaizen. It literally just means continuous, small, incremental improvements. And the absolute genius of this is that it lets you bypass fear completely. Instead of trying to conquer the entire mountain in one go, you just focus on taking one tiny, non-threatening step. For us in the classroom, this is a total game changer. When we use these tiny steps, we're doing more than just getting a student to complete an assignment. We're actually rewiring their whole relationship with challenges. That fear of failure just evaporates because the task is literally too small to fail at. And as they stack up these little wins, their brains start building new habits and new neural pathways that make learning feel natural instead of stressful. Okay. This all sounds amazing in theory, right? But how do we actually make it work in a real, busy classroom? Let's talk about the practical tools you can use to make any goal feel totally achievable. This idea, which Dr. Sudhendra pulls from James Clear's work, is just brilliant. You take any huge, intimidating goal and you shrink it down to a 2-minute version. So for a student who's terrified of reading, the goal is no longer read a whole chapter. The new goal is open the book and read for just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. I mean, think about that. Can a student do math for 2 minutes? Can they practice an instrument for 2 minutes? Write one single sentence? Of course they can. The goal becomes so laughably easy that it's actually harder not to do it. And to give these small steps even more punch, we can pair them up with the classic SMART goals framework. This makes sure that our 2-minute action isn't just random, It's super focused. So it's not just practice piano, it's practice the C major scale hands separately for 2 minutes. See? It gives students a crystal clear, achievable target and connects every tiny action back to that bigger goal. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but can these teeny tiny steps really lead to big results? Well, let me tell you about an incredible example from Anders Ericsson's research that proves just how powerful these small, compounding efforts can be. I want you to meet Steve Falloon. When he started this study, Steve had a pretty average memory. He could remember about 7 random numbers in a row, like a phone number. But by the end of the study, he could memorize a sequence of 82 random digits. That is an absolutely mind-blowing feat of memory. And just look at this progress. It wasn't some giant leap. It was this slow, steady, relentless climb from 7 digits to 40 and finally all the way up to 82. This is exactly what the power of consistent, tiny progress looks like in action. So, what was his secret? Did he have some kind of superhuman brain? Was he using some revolutionary new memory trick? The real answer is, well, it's almost silly how simple it is. That's it. That was his entire strategy. His daily goal was never memorize 80 digits. His goal was just to improve his personal best from the day before by 1 single digit. If he remembered 27 digits today, his only goal for tomorrow was to get to 28. A tiny, achievable, and totally non-threatening step. So, let's bring it all home. The journey from helping a student who's paralyzed by fear to one who's making steady, confident progress, it doesn't require some massive change to your teaching style. It really just takes a small shift in perspective. If there is one key takeaway from Dr. Sudhendra's material, it's this. Success doesn't come from setting these huge, terrifying goals. It comes from mastering the art of the small, the specific, and the well-defined goal. That's how we help our students build momentum, build confidence, and ultimately achieve real, lasting mastery. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Think about that one student you have who feels the most stuck, the most overwhelmed. What is the one tiny, ridiculously small 2-minute action they could take today that moves them just 1 inch in the right direction? Because that is where all the magic really begins.